That was fast. All of a sudden, there's 20 pages that open. Hi, guys.
Hi, everyone.
Hi. Hi. It's nice to see everybody. Nice. Hi.
Hey, hi.
And some I saw this morning also. Double. No, and this morning in our call, Sophie, but also this morning with Assemblage for Kimberly and maybe Monique or and Amber. Hi again. I should have several outfits so you can during the day.
You've got a new location. Everything's changed.
Yeah.
This looks great.
Let me know if the sound is good. I specifically asked my kids not to do any gaming while mom. No, I don't know what that.
You said nothing about pretending to be roaring lions with megaphones.
Yeah.
So.
You know, I had my two sons with me on Sunday, and I asked them, say, do you know Discord? And I'm like, oh, of course we know Discord, Mommy. So they did my education on Discord, which was so nice, and I was so happy that you guys educated me on that, platform.
It's when you become cool is when you tell your kids that you know Discord, and they're like,
exactly.
I asked a question, can you teach me? And they're like, no. So I just wanted to preface before we start that because Charlotte was getting a lot of work, I'm going to send you links of the slides right there. So be sure to download. You'll have directly the slides, and I'm going to send you the Excel sheet that we had last week because it was getting easier, and also I don't want to crowd your inbox, and I'm being mindful. Please, if there's any comment that you receive too much or too little or whatnot, don't hesitate to let me know. I'll tell Charlotte about it. I mean, but no, please don't hesitate. Any feedback or anything you think would be helpful or I could do better. Yeah, so we can start. And here's the Charlotte just put the Excel sheet, so feel free to download it. Hi, everybody. I'm just looking at everybody because I'm so pleased to see familiar faces. Okay, so we're good. So I'm going to take the slides. I'm going to share my screen. Wait, where's my first? And before I share, I do a little introduction, but I wanted to tell you that I spoke to my dad this week, and he told me, I told him what I was doing with the Zoom because he has no idea, not that he asks really, but I said that I was doing Zoom, and he's like, what do you do on Zoom? I say, well, I teach people things on interviewing, on how to interview. And he said to me, well, you're doing exactly what you were doing at 5 years old, because at 5, you would go in the bathroom and you would teach how to brush your teeth to your imaginary friends in your bathroom, in front of the mirror. And I was like, really? He's like, yeah. You would start. So you were meant to be a teacher. I'm like, well, I'm not really teaching because I'm doing, but he said, anyway, he wanted to know that, I'm doing what I was doing at 5 years old. So basically, we're coming full circle. And I really wanted to share that this is me sharing about interviewing, but I'm also learning. And, the articles I pull out and the information I pull is coming to me because my husband will send me, this great article he read. So I'm getting fed by some of your articles, some of the things, and I like to kind of funnel down and make it simple. And the fact that I'm doing these slides for you is very interesting because it's forcing me to organize the information that I would be, reading and exploring. But this group, the Zoom, is forcing me to put it in slide and to put it in, in an organized way. So thank you for that. And And this morning I had a call with the assemblage team, and I have to tell you that I've rarely seen a candidate that could not in one way or another with just a little bit of tweak do the job. What I've seen most is candidates that are not prepared to pass the interview, not prepared for change. So I think that the good news is that you have all it takes. And the bad news, it just needs a little bit of tweaking on how to present yourself. And I know I've had call specifically with some of you, but it's really presenting, it's the packaging, you know, it's like creating the nice box with the ribbon for the present inside. And I said this morning also that most candidates who have not changed jobs for a long time, the pattern I've seen is they tend to, if they haven't challenged themselves very often, or they haven't changed, or they haven't updated themselves, they will change jobs and it will fall into the rebound job, you know, like boyfriend. You very long time in a relationship, and then you have the rebound guy, which is just, you know, a short-term commitment because you don't really know what you want. And I think for jobs, it's very similar. If you've been for a long time doing what you're doing, the minute you go outside, you might just take something just for the sake of taking something. So doing all this work is great because it will help you, you know, transition well into next career. And voilà, but that's what I wanted to share. And again, I'll put a slide that I shared also this morning. Again, know that all this information, you can do it yourself with courses, but you can be, you know, surrounded with the team or with a coach. Most likely, we need a little bit of push, but most likely in times we get stuck because we can't, you know, we have a narrow vision of where we want to go. But if you have a little bit of help to get unstuck, after that, you know, you're ready to go and learn new things. It's often a very change of mindset that comes. And I know Sophie asked me the other day, you know, what is it for me in this call and what I'm doing? And I can't remember what I answered, but it made me think, and I realized that I'm a bit of an idealist. I would love to be able to change the paradigm that was before. And so this idea of doing this career gym, you know, I would love to create one day a place, maybe it will be physical or maybe online, where you could come and learn new things, right? Where you could come and learn improv, where you could come and upgrade, like have a class on LinkedIn, come and learn all the things about your career, about work, or, you know, things that are related, even improv, or do that annual checkup that I mentioned sometimes, you know, about your career. So I think, you know, a school of newness, I don't know how I would call it, but a school where you would learn new things and be, you know, comfortable coming and learning. And after 15 years of recruitment, working for many different brands, I found that I was always fascinated because people are really the most, the biggest asset of companies. I mean, and those of you who are in retail, you know that. You can have the best product. If you don't have the right people, it's not going to fly off the shelf. And even with the best people, it might not fly. So you really need good people. So unless, you know, you super tech or you need people that are invested in growing. And I think that if you are to hire people today, you want to know that they're taking ownership of their career. You want to know, I mean, one of the questions I always ask in interviews is, okay, what are you learning? Tell me where is your growth path? What is something that, you know, you're committed to improving for yourself? So that's my little utopian, you know, response to what's in it for me. And I think the collective is really very interesting. I said it's an adventure that I'm excited to see how it grows. Creating a place where you can together flex your muscles and learn and refer each other and be there for each other I think is very positive. I think it's a very beautiful world, future world. So I'm here. So this week, there is a lot of, well, quite some slides. I'm going to move this window here. No, that didn't work. Okay, so the slide went away. There we go. Okay, take two. There we go, and we're gonna. Yes. Okay, so I'm gonna stop sharing. I'm gonna go to the right page because there's 36 pages, so I'm not gonna take you through the whole thing. Okay, take three. There we go. So this week is all about getting the interview and closing the deal. And I know that, you know, I've talked about how to find the perfect job, looking at job descriptions. And the idea is really, you know, now is going to getting the interview. And there's a guy who's called Jim Rohn. If you have a chance to look him up and look at the videos, he was kind of a coach in the 70s, and he has a very funny tone of voice. So if you have a chance to look him up, he's very interesting. And he said, to succeed in sales, simply talk to lots of people every day. And here's what's exciting. There are a lot of people. There are lots of people. And often what I hear is people say, oh, you know, I didn't get the job, but they applied to one, they connected with two people. I mean, I don't want to say that it's a sales game and it's a numbers game, but in some ways, yes, you have to be out there and connect with more people. So we're going to dive into that. So this is maybe what you don't know, or maybe you do, but I did a little research, and this is a slide that shows you the amount of jobs and how the percentage of a job and how they got there. So what you'll see is the big numbers is that networking and referral from peer to peer and is between 70 and 85%. So applying to a job online is maybe 10 or 15%. Internal referral is between 5 and 10%. And recruiters is less than 10%. So I know that, you know, I'm a recruiter, and most likely you know some recruiters, but you know, just take it with a grain of salt, because they are only 10% of the job out there, or 10% of the ways you can get a job. So I would heavily rely on the networking. I don't say that you shouldn't do applying, or you shouldn't do recruiters, but let's face it, if you can do 50% of networking, and you know, the rest is a good, it's a good ratio. And what is important in networking is that, you know, it could be within a certain circle, and we're going to go in there, but it can be done very organically. So whether you're in a collective group, or whether you're part of a member, you know, your school, your alma mater, or, but it could be also online, you know, by following and commenting. So getting the interview. I've divided this in first, the first part is who. So when people talk about networking, I think that there's really a lot of avenues. When I'm recruiting, of course, LinkedIn is my main source of where I look for candidate, but I have a network of people that I've worked with, and I nurture that network. Whether it's colleagues, past colleagues, or mentors, I will contact, you know, people and say, hey, I'm looking for this search, you know, do you have any referral or candidates you might think? I might look at schools, schools or collectives to say, hey, I have this position and I'm going to be networked. These are little things. It might be drops in the ocean, you feel, because they're a group, but it will fall into somebody's ears. And I think you should absolutely keep that in mind for when you're looking for a job. Employers, if you have companies that you're interested in, go after them. I would say that you can either in a company, let's say you're really interested in joining, I don't know, Gucci, right? There's several ways that you can approach it. But let's say you wanted to work in a retail position in Gucci, you can, of course, contact HR, which is a great way to contact. But HR people are super busy and they're not in the mindset of recruiting. They're in the mindset of doing admin for their employees. They're in the mindset of making sure, you know, legally everything's fine. They're not in the mindset of recruiting. That's why for difficult search, they hire recruiters. Recruiters get hired for very specific jobs or because they want to be discreet, because somebody's in place and they don't want to tell them that they're going to be, you know, moving, and they want to have a backup quickly after. Also because it's hard. Maybe some positions are difficult, the manager is difficult, or the business is difficult. But recruiters tend to want to have what I call plug and play. Or HR actually loves plug and play. That's why recruiters do plug and play. When a client asks me, oh, I need somebody to do a specific function, in their mindset, they always go after tell me, well, look at my competitors and who is doing that job there. They won't have the open mind of saying, hey, I know somebody who has a similar set of skills and could come or transfer from an industry. They usually tend to want to go to get, for example, they're looking for a salesperson selling jewelry. They will want to go to somebody who's selling jewelry at the same type of price that they are selling. So it's very interesting, that notion of plug and play. Each time I do a search, it's the way I approach it is when a client, I will give him what he wants and I will add a few candidates that might be a little bit out of the box. You know, that's some of you who have been candidates might know, if you were slightly off, I'm very open to presenting candidates that I think can do the job, but they might not come from that industry directly, or they might have not been, for example, in a luxury market. And sourcing. Sourcing is very important because when you have trust with somebody, you will automatically, the brain works like, if you trust somebody, you will automatically think that what they're sharing with you is trustworthy. So if they tell you, if you have a candidate, usually in recruitment, what happens quite often is I'll meet a candidate and maybe they're not interested in the position for whatever reason, but they will tell me, I know somebody that you should contact. And often that person is a great candidate if they understand clearly the brief. And I give little presents to the candidates who refer me other candidates, because I think, you know, I want them to remember that and send me other good people, because when you find talent, you want to have more talent. And I put this little chart to show you that it's activity meets effectiveness. So if you are not reaching a lot of people, that's called low activity. You know, most likely you're not going to be very effective. So you need to reach a number of people so that you have high activity. And ideally, you want to be in the high effectiveness, meaning you have to reach the right people, right? So in the Excel chart that Charlotte shared on the chat, I want you to think that to populate that people section with people that are going to be your trusty or your trusted contacts, and nurture that column. It can be only 10 people, but these 10 people will multiply, you know, your visibility on the market. So it's really, to go and get the interview is really, who are you talking to? How wide is your audience? And I'm not talking necessarily in numbers, but, you know, ideally more than 2 people should be the name of the game. But you should have, you know, 10 people that you can call upon for work conversations. So here's an example. So this is what happened. Actually, this one was Sunday. today I think I did the charts on Monday, but this is the kind of messages I receive, right? And these are all candidates who are looking for a job. The first one, hi, dear Agatha, I hope you've been well. It's been a long time, but I saw you pop up on LinkedIn and realized it's a perfect time to reconnect. Now, what you don't know is this person is the CEO of a large brand. Now, she's playing it cool, but she doesn't tell me what she wants. She doesn't tell me, look, I'm looking for, maybe my next move. I would love to connect with you and have a coffee. I would, whatever. So what do I respond? Right? So when you have a conversation, it's cool to play it cool, but if you have no follow-up, it's, or you don't know what the person wants, I don't know what she wants. And if I see that I don't know what she wants, most likely, even if I have a conversation, she doesn't know where she is. The second one below, it's, thank for LinkedIn. And you've heard this, but the attitude is super important. I think, I don't want to say that you have to have a positive attitude at all costs, but when I see that already there's a miserable time and here's my resume attached after that, these are little things that I think can be avoided, having a bit of a, in today's time, have a thing. But the one I put on the right was great because she said, hi, Agathe, great article. I don't know which article she referred to, but at least, she read something, it seems. Thank you for sharing. I hope you're well, healthy, and working from home. It's been quite some time, and I would love to catch up. I left Coty. I'm happily consulting, and I explore next step. Strange time for business, but the need communication leadership has never been greater. Be well. So it's very simple. I would love, that's the kind of people that automatically out of the, I don't know how many emails I receive because as a recruiter, I get all these candidates contacting me. But out of the three, obviously, the one I received with the today is so easy for me because I know that person has, clarity in her message. And when that shows clarity, it obviously shows that, that conversation is going to be much easier than the two others. Now, I want to tell you that there's something called, and it's a tongue twister, but eligibility versus suitability. If you're called for an interview, it means that you are eligible for the position. Recruiters, HR people don't speak with you if they don't think you can do the job. So if you're called for an interview, if you're called for a phone screening, is that they're testing you because they think you could do the job. And what they're looking for is your suitability. What they want to know is, are you the right person for that company, right? So it's a kind of a culture. So in recruitment, we say you hire for skill and you fire for fit. So usually if you get the call, if you get the interview, it's because you're eligible, because you have the skill. They've screened that, right? It's super easy to find. The hard skills is easy to find. Now, what they want to know is if you have the right mindset, if you, would fit the culture of the company, if the salary is right, if you're, if you're open to move. So it's a very interesting concept because candidates and some of you that I've spoken to say, hey, I'm having an interview, I'm super nervous. And I want to say really relax into it, because if you've been called for an interview, it means that they want to hire you. They have an interest in knowing you. They are interested in getting to know a little bit more in details your background. So closing the deal. So when you are in an interview, it's very important to make it a two-way street, right? And I read this, offering advice is a sign of good leadership and asking for advice is a sign of intelligence. So if the exchange goes well, both parties benefit. And I want to really not turn the table, but when you're going to an interview, you are interviewing as much the company as they are interviewing you. I spoke with somebody this morning and they said, I thought it was the dream job, and actually they seem to be unclear on the hours, on the salary, on etc. So that company might not be the right fit for you. It's very important that it shows that you are exchanging and that you are interviewing them as much as possible. So on the how, this is a bit of the follow-up of what we did in the first session. start with a positive tone. Identify the type of advice you're seeking. When we talked about, hey, can I pick your brain, or that candidate who wants to talk to me, I want to know what she wants to hear, right? What she wants to hear is, hey, I've been at Coty, I'm looking for a new position. How is the market is one of the questions I have. But have a specific question of what kind of advice you want. And one suggestion I have is don't assume you already know the answer. If you're in conversation with somebody, and if you're asking advice to somebody, you might want, your idea to be validated, or you might want to be reinforced in what you thought, but stay a little bit open-minded, because you might hear something that you don't want to hear, but it could be interesting for a different avenue. So I could call her and say, look, I don't have anything happening cosmetic, but lifestyle and the sports brand like a Peloton or a Lululemon are very active. Now, if she's very fixed mindset and thinks, oh no, I want to stay in the cosmetic industry, then she might shut off that information. But if she's more, flexible, she might say, okay, I'm doing marketing, that skill is completely transferable to a different market. So stay open-minded. And know that when you're exchanging information and when you're going to an interview, it's a bit like asking for advice or that conversation. The person who gives advice tends to be in the why, right? And give you advice of why you would be doing that. And the recipient tends to want to know how to do things. So sometimes the challenge is really staying open to understanding, why you want to know information. So in the first example that I shared, the person said, oh, your name popped up, just thought it would be nice to reconnect. Now, I want to know why. Is she looking for a position? I mean, she's the CEO of a company. She could also be looking for me as a client, as for recruiting. But if you have a little bit of more, I need to know the why. So why are you contacting me, and why do you think I could help you? And the person who's asking for advice tends to be, how do I do this? How do I get the job? How, what is the concrete advice? So that's where sometimes, being a bit open to whatever comes. And I cannot reinforce enough, I put it in bold, follow up and be grateful. If you are asking somebody for advice, it is very important that you follow up with the results of the information they gave you. For example, if somebody is asking you a referral, or somebody is asking you for, I don't know, the best newsletter you thought, or what is the best company that I should work for, whatnot, follow up with them. If they give you information, follow up with them. It's like, thank you. I saw this company, I looked at this company, or I looked at this newsletter, want to say thank you, I found it very useful. Maybe even if you didn't, I don't want to, but follow up and say thank you. I've had plenty of times where I've, friends would tell me, oh, my daughter is going for a school interview, can you help them with the interview? And I said, of course, and I'll spend an hour with, friend's daughter and she was soaking up information. She was like really, all things new, because you don't learn how to interview at school. Never heard back from the daughter, never heard back from the father. And, it's not my place to say, but if you're going to an interview with an HR, or if you go to solicit a meeting, follow up and say thank you. It's the one thing I ask my kids to do, but the one thing I ask every candidate that I present to a client, I said, follow up and send a thank you email. And I have to say that to adults who are making more than 6 figures and who are very well aware, I'm sure their kids know how to say thank you, but often we forget, and we forget for many times because we're busy, because, one thing led to the other, or whatever. Do the follow-up. Many clients tell me, I found this candidate super interesting. I met with them. I spent an hour with them. I never heard back from them. And I said, no, but they're very interested. Yeah, thank you very much. But they never sent me either a note or a thing. I'm not saying that you have to send a handwritten note, although, maybe these days it might be the most nice thing to do, but do follow up and do thank or give, the information if that helped you. And you'll see this is the article on offering advice. I thought it was really well done. It's a full article that was in Harvard Business Review, and it was the article on the art of giving and receiving advice. And that article prompted many, many articles on why you should never say, hi, can I pick your brain? And so if you Google, how can I pick your brain? You'll see there's plenty of things that no, don't say that when you ask for advice. Be very specific. And it came from these two gentlemen who wrote this article for Harvard Business Review on the art of giving and receiving advice. So one of the things that is important in when you get to an interview or when you get to a phone call is establishing trust. And this also, and I put it's Fast Company, but I thought it was really well written. They said, we live in a socially connected age. Our nose for disingenuous, deceptive behavior has never been more sensitive. In that environment, establishing trust is not simply a choice, but a requirement. We have lived the past 10 years in hyper marketing years where everything was branded, everything is branded, I don't know what I can think of, but every single item is now cool or has been, hyped. A restaurant has to be cool. Everything is, a hipster or whatnot. And I think now we are very sensitive to that, and we can smell marketing a mile away. So establishing trust in a conversation, and I had mentioned it in a previous series, but listening is very key. But the fuel for trust is transparency. So one thing I would really suggest to candidates is be open, be very transparent, as much as transparent as you want on the information you want to share. You can have boundaries and you can decide not to talk. You can decide not to talk about compensation. You can, if a position was ended poorly, you can say, look, I'm not at liberty of talking, or I don't have anything nice to say, so I'd rather not say it, but don't block. Now, one thing is don't overshare. Interviews can be very personal because you're talking about your experience, your life, and for at least for New Yorkers, our work is maybe 90% of our life. So we can be very excited. Don't overshare. You don't need to know, don't start with your first internship. Don't go over how your boss was, very challenging. Don't go over how the company lost its funding. That information can come later. If I can give the advice to 90% of the 5,000 people I've interviewed over the past 15 years, is you're saying too much. Let the conversation come in with the questions after. And the second thing is, again, maintaining trust by being accessible and following up. Often what happens is that you're in a crisis. Well, today we are in a big crisis, but sometimes there's prior to the crisis, maybe your company might be closing one business function, or maybe the budgets were down, or maybe your boss decided to hire somebody else and you need to change career. What happens is that you'll very quickly reach out to the people that are on the list, right? Bit of interest. Hi, Agathe, I'd love to see you. I haven't seen you in many years, but hey, just the recruiter thing seems very, I'm very excited to connect with a recruiter this week. And I don't hear from them for years, but when there's a crisis, I know exactly because they will contact the recruiter. They call your doctor only when, you need them. And I want to say, with recruiters might not be important, although, but I want to say with the people that you are talking with, your references, with your referrals, with the people that you have on your people list, call them once in a while, just to say hello, just to follow up with what happened. You know, maybe you said, oh, I changed job. I wanted to let you know, this is a fantastic company. I love what they're doing. I'm happy to share, you know, how we've started this new project, but share a little bit. And creating the trust is following up even when there's no information. Or, oh, I thought of you. I read this article, it was really fascinating. Thought that you might be interested. How are you doing? Establishing trust is really two things, that transparency and that maintaining in times of when you are not in need. And when you ask advice, you know, of course, when we're in need, we need advice and it's usually urgent. But it's always nice to connect with people when you're not in need, especially when you think you might be in need in a short term. So, you know, establishing that relationship and thinking long-term is very important. So now the STAR exercise. And I forgot my little Post-it, so. I did the exercise because I wanted to be prepared. So the STAR exercise is a great exercise. And below, I found an article where actually there's plenty of examples. So I would urge you to look at that exercise, that article, because there's plenty of examples of how to respond to or how to use the STAR exercise. The STAR exercise is very simple, and you can use it at any time. You can use it not only in interviews, but you can also use it you know, at work or when you want to share something with your team. So it starts with the S, with situation. It's setting the scene and giving necessary details of your example. The T is for task. Describe what your responsibility was in that situation. Action, explain what steps you took to address it. And result, share what outcomes your actions achieved. So the STAR exercise is a great way when you want to highlight an achievement that you've had, right? Maybe you had a super success. Maybe you did something that made you really interesting that you want to share. So I did it this way. So for situation, so I had a client who needed a very technical recruitment for the supply chain, right? They needed a director of supply chain and it was very technical. So that's the situation. The task is I was hired because I had done several recruitments for them. They liked the people I placed and they knew I understood their culture. So the task was that I was hired and we needed this recruitment fast. The action I took was I hired a consultant in supply chain and I asked her to assist me in the recruitment. And we did interviews together where I interviewed on the culture part and she scanned the technical questions that I didn't know and I didn't have time to learn. And the result was we are able to place a superstar that fit and the culture and the skills in record time. And the client was super happy. And that person was, and the candidate was super happy. So it was really, you know, that's one example of a STAR exercise. And this is me sharing that information. So it's a very simple way, but it's very efficient for people to understand your action, the results you took. And sometimes we tend to share our achievements in lengthy ways because, you know, we were in it. We didn't have the time to have a bit of the perspective. So I found that STAR exercise fantastic. You can use it. You can use it at work for any types of situation. And I shared with some of the people this morning, but I found, I was listening to this webinar and they had these 3 concepts that I love. I'm a geek for acronyms. So, you know, DIY, it's do it yourself. And I was thinking of how do you apply that in your career and investing in your career. And so DIY is do it yourself. You're taking a class like you're doing today and you're learning and you're going to do the exercise yourself. The DIY is you do it with you. They do it with you. And so I thought it was really nice because it aligned with the collective we're putting together, where we're going to put together a group and you're going to do the exercise with the group. And finally, the DIFY, which is do it for you, is when you hire a coach, when you're stuck, you don't want the group and you want somebody full-time just for yourself because you're a bit in that transition, or you really want to make a big change, or you want, you know, somebody to kickstart that change. So I don't know, I like the different acronyms, and I like the mindset of, you know, in life that, or in your career, you have different levels of what you can learn. So when you look at classes, you'll see if you can do it yourself. If you're very knowing yourself, if you know you're self-starter and you follow through, DIY is great. If you know you need a little bit of help, or if you want a bit more of the collective intelligence, I think joining a group, any type of groups, but being part of a team, same as the gym. You know, you can do the exercise, you can do your yoga at home, but you know, when you go to a yoga class and you have everybody, you have that energy of the group. And the do it for you is you have your own yoga teacher that comes to your house, which would be dreamy. Different budget. There we go. So what I wanted to conclude in the getting the interview and closing the deal is that candidates are in a very vulnerable spot. I often tell candidates that there's the Dr. Seuss book, Oh, the Places You'll Go. I don't know if some of you know, it's a very American children book. And there's one space, what's called the waiting room. And Dr. Seuss has this very nice way. The book is fantastic. I should buy it again. And he says there's the waiting room where people wait for their hair to grow, for the rain to rain, for the shout. When you go, when you're called by a recruiter, when you are looking for a job, you are de facto in a waiting room because you're waiting for somebody else to tell you if you're going to get the job or not, right? So you are in a passive position waiting. So you're very vulnerable and you tend to be, you know, wondering. What I want to tell you is it's not personal, it's a process, it's business. That's why I suggest that you have a lot more people on the, or a lot more people, I don't know how many people you have, but to have a number of people that in your network. Because when you have a number of people, it doesn't, you know, you don't put all your eggs in the same basket and think, oh, is this job at Gucci happening or not? If it doesn't happen, there's nothing else. If you have a network that you're talking to on a regular basis, the chances are you are going to have several opportunities and that you don't rely only on one opportunity. And yes, sometimes you don't get the job. It's a process. Maybe somebody was more prepared. Maybe when somebody had, you know, compensation that was lower than you and the company needed that, whatever. It's a process. It takes a number of interviews to land the right one. And it's business. So be gentle with yourself because I know it's not easy to be interviewed. I've been many times interviewed and it's not an easy place. So, but it's a process. So on that note, I finished sharing the slides and I'm going to look at the comments, and please jump in if there's any comments, any questions you might have. And thank you, Nico, that you have other imaginary friends. And Monique, we'll send you, Monique, the Slack invitation. Okay, so the Slack link needs to be sent. Okay, and Charlotte, send it if you're having issues. Okay, and Kelly used the STAR exercise. It's great. If you want to share on how you used it or have you in the past, that's great. Which to apply STAR method to current project. Thanks, Agathe. And Juan, fantastic. I'm happy that you were able to use the exercise as quickly as that. That's like instant gratification for me. So yes, so the hardest part is to arrive to the first interview. The hardest part is absolutely, Flora, you're right, to arrive at the first interview. And that's why the challenge is that when we did the first week we did was to look at different options, different job descriptions, right? And staying open to different opportunities. And what I want to say is the second part is it's really a process, is applying for different positions. Now, maybe, Flo, I want to say that the first week we did is what are your hard skills and what are your soft skills? Because sometimes it's explaining those in a short and concise ways that is the challenge. I would say that often when people are over eager of something, it kind of puts off. It creates a warning for recruiters. People who are too eager for a job, they feel that, you know, if you don't help them or if they don't get the job, something dramatic might happen. And you have to know that the client has, or a recruiting is a very narcissistic process. They want people who, they want leaders, they want optimists. That's why the extroverts have an easier time to pass interviews. But if you arrive and you're very sure of your hard skills, if you're very sure of what you bring to the table, it will come down a little bit on what of the possible outcome of the interview. And what happens is that if you, I want to say, relax a little bit. If it happens, it happens, it's great. If it doesn't happen, you need to move on and have another interview. In a way, it's, if you have a number of job description, and it's almost like if they don't get you, too bad for them. You know what? They had their opportunity, they didn't get you. And you can't be down because a company didn't take you. They might not have the time. I mean, today, especially, I think HR is completely swamped. They're really, well, I hope there's no HR people in here, but they're usually not very, you know, they're very organized for the admin, they're very organized for the legal, but the hiring process, I think, is really not their forte. That's why there's actually recruiters. And I want to say, don't take it personally. You know what? It might not be the right timing. Maybe it's a bit of work on yourself on thinking of learning something new. And again, it's a sales, you know, salespeople have a very efficient method. They have numbers, and usually, you know, call centers, they have a list and they put, okay, for 15 calls, every 15 calls, I'll get one yes. So they go, okay, this call, no, no, no. The more they hear no, the closer they are to a yes. Because if they do 12 calls, most likely the next 3, they're getting one yes. It's also a numbers game. If you reach only 3 people and you get 3 no's, that's super frustrating, right? But if you have that, a little bit more that, a little bit more options, then it lowers down the stress threshold. And sometimes it's also getting out there. You know, yes, you hear no first, you hear no second. And I can tell you, I remember also when I started my own practice, I went from employee to recruiter, right? I was recruiting for a company, but when I started my own practice, it was me, Agathe. So when a client was telling me no, I felt that they were rejecting me. You know, I was doing the same job as I was doing as an employee, and I was doing my job very well. But going from employee, where if they said no to Sterling, which was my previous company, I was like, okay, never mind. You know, they don't want to pay. Our fees were too high. They didn't have the budget, whatnot. When they started saying no to me, I was like, oh my God, it's like, they don't like me. What did I not do? I should have said this and that. You know, after 3 months, I was like, you got to snap out of it. And, you know, I was like, okay, this is business. And I remember very well, I will tell you, I went to Tiffany. We were pitching Tiffany, and it was a 3rd meeting. And I was with Henri, who was working with me at the time. And I was like, Henri, this is a, you know, $1 billion company. We are a startup. This is our, you know, whatever, 3rd client and whatever. And I went ballsy. I said to Tiffany, we are called Sur Mesure, which means bespoke in French, because we only take 6 searches at a time. And I do very, you know, bespoke search. I'm full on for my clients, and that's what we do. The next day, they called us to say, how many searches do you currently have? And I said 3, and say, okay, we'll take the 3 others. And I was like floored. Like, you know, I you know, to this day, I think it's my not my biggest success story. The other one is the one at Cartier, but I was fascinated how, you know, I put out boundaries. I was like, this is me. This is who you get. You like it or not. And in a way, they went, yeah.
Hey, Agathe, it's Nico. Can I add something?
Nico.
What I wanted to say also is that I think it's important to remember, as you said at the beginning of the call, that the interview, once you're past the hard skill part, is also, you know, a check on culture, and it's a check on mutual fit. And so, you know, once you get into the interview process, because I think all of us in that group have careers where we've been on both sides of the equation. We've been recruiting and we've been recruited. And I think it's important to really understand that, you know, once you start first and second interview, it's a mutual interview for fit into the culture. And if you don't get a job because the culture was not the right fit, you actually saved yourself a lot of time and a lot of miserable time. And I think that it's also important to see it this way, you know, when you don't get things and not take them personally. I don't think it's theoretical. I think it's real. I mean, we've hired, you know, wrong candidate culture-wise, and most of us also hired, you know, in the wrong company, and it's miserable for everybody.
I absolutely agree. I mean, in the fashion industry, there's some companies that are challenging. Everybody knows they're challenging. The owner is very challenging, and etc. And I'll see candidates like, yeah, I heard about the rumors, but, you know, I thought anyway, I wanted the job. And you know what? 6 months out, they want out. And they saw it writing on the wall. So if an interview is not going well, it might not be the right job for you. And some people have said, you know, I've had challenging personal situation, professionally. How do you share that in an interview? Again, be transparent, say what you want to say, and just then put your boundaries. If you had a bad personal situation, you can say, look, it was not an easy situation. I had a disagreement, and it was more important for me to leave the company. You know, it was important to keep my own integrity to leave the company. I disagreed on strategy. I disagreed on the way they handled employees. I disagreed on how HR handled the situation. And it was important for me to preserve my integrity to get out of there. Is there any other question that I want? And sometimes, you know, in your LinkedIn profile, so somebody says that they can't share as much in their LinkedIn profile. The LinkedIn is very, I've been saying that I'm going to do a whole Zoom on LinkedIn because there's some very interesting features that are coming out all the time. LinkedIn is an algorithm, so you have to put some of the keywords. One thing that happens on LinkedIn is I get searched a lot for some of the keywords that are in my profile. So in my profile, I put the name of my clients. And what happens is that if somebody's looking for, you know, position for Dior, I will be pulled because there's Dior on my profile. Even though I never worked for Dior as a company, I worked for them as a client. So they will appear in my search. So if you can't share as much as possible, just share, you know, some keywords that you think would be relevant.
Agathe, may I ask you a question?
Please.
To what you were saying earlier about the transparency and the boundaries, wouldn't it look arrogant to come and say, I had a disagreement with the head of the company? Like, how do you handle that? Let's say, yeah, like you're in my case, running North America, and then it didn't really go well with the CEO of the company. We had totally different views. How do you explain that in an interview without sounding arrogant and conceited?
I think you can go back to the STAR exercise. You know, if you can state the situation, if you can say, you know, I was asked, I don't know, to open 15 stores. And, you know, the action is that I was given no budget to open those 15 stores. As a result, I thought that, you know, the people I could hire were not at the level of the product I was selling or the qualification I needed. And so we had to part. I couldn't effectively do. If you go, actually the STAR exercise is really nice. And in the link, you'll see it can apply to a lot of things. It takes out a lot of the not the drama,
but the emotion,
the emotion. Yeah. And because, you know, it feels personal. I'm 100% committed with my job. I work in a job that is very personal, right? You're all human beings. And I tell my clients, I can tell Dior, or I can tell Louis Vuitton, you guys sell bags. If somebody's not happy with the bag, you can return that bag. You can, you know, exchange that bag. You can reimburse that bag. I am in the business of people. If I place somebody and they get fired within 6 months, you know, or within 3 months, I feel responsible. You know, I know I shouldn't, and I should maybe be, but I'm a very passionate person. So I care deeply. Maybe that's why I'm in that job. And, you know, maybe I would be a teacher or a nurse, but I know that I care deeply for people. And that's why I'm, you know, there is always emotion. And sometimes I will have disagreement with clients. One client fired somebody within 3 months and was very confused about the situation, how they hired them. And I refused to replace them because I knew there was an issue with the client. And so I said, well, I will replace that person unlimitedly for the next year, but you need to fix that issue. If not, I'm not placing another human being that will have to face and deal with that situation. And Stacy, hi, Stacy. Applying in position in the luxury retail, given the current situation. Stacy, I had a conversation this morning with this woman called Anna Angelique, and she writes articles that are very interesting. And we talked about this whole shadow economy that is happening for the ultra rich and the super rich, that they think, you know, are most likely going to be flying private, are most likely continuing to buy Hermes bags and everything, but they're going to go a little bit undercover. So I think that she was saying that the two markets that are going to be most sustained after the crisis is the super luxury, because that market is the least affected, and the maybe more mass market. It's the middle market where it's going to be more challenging. So, and I can tell you, I was looking at my closet and I was like, wait, I've done seven Zoom, but I have, you know, how many outfits do I have? I might need to buy a shirt, right? A top to look good for all of you. And so I was looking at this little store that's by my house, and of course they're closed. And I had connected with the woman on LinkedIn because she was a great salesperson, and I had connected. So I texted her on LinkedIn and say, hey, you know, can I shop? She's like, well, you can go on the website, but you know, it's going to be 5 days delivery. I'm like, well, it's for Wednesday. It didn't happen. Obviously, this is an old shirt of mine, but we figured out. And I think there's going to be a need for personal shoppers, because if you can't go to the store, if you know, the very high-end customers, and some of the stores like a Dover Street Market in New York, they can do 50% of their business on consignment. Consignment means they send all the pieces to the client tries everything at home, sees in their own mirror, tries with their own shoes, and looks like fabulous or not, and then they return. And that's what, you know, the very wealthy shop. Now with the coronavirus, everybody's going to want to shop like that, you know. So and she said, I can send you 3 or 5 blouses. I don't know how many she's going to send me. Try them at home and go back. And I was like, oh my God, I can get used to this. This is like, you know, and they want to make a sale. So I think there's going to be plenty of occasions in the retail sector to create new ways of shopping. From a business ownership perspective, do you have a ratio of yes to no? So Kimberly, how many I have a ratio of yes to no? You know what? Initially it was a little lower, then it became better. I also developed a taste for selling. So initially, you know, when I started my company, I loved recruiting. I have the bug for recruiting, and the more complicated, the better. If you tell me, Agathe, I need to find somebody who knows how to do this and this, but lives there and has had experience with, you know, I'm like, okay, it's complicated. Great. You know, I have like this Where's Waldo thing. And so I love doing the search. I didn't like selling as much. It was a bit more challenging for me. But what I found with the years is that I got excited in the process. I found the going back and forth was actually interesting, and I started to enjoy it. And I would tell you, I think with one client, Goyard, it took 1 year from the first conversation to the signature of the deal. 1 year, but that client is such a superb name, and it was, you know, dreamy client, that I was like, okay, it's going to take 1 year, and it took 1 year. So selling has been something that I've learned to enjoy, and more recently, I'm being quite lucky that it's been referral. So, you know, people come because they've heard, and bizarrely, not bizarrely, but I think is recruiters have a bad reputation, right? Because they are looking for a candidate, and all of a sudden they send blast emails to a lot of people. They meet you, you work, you don't work, and they don't hear from you because they don't have the time to follow up. And because I'm a bit of I like people, and I always follow up as much as I can. I will say it didn't happen. If I can share information, I will follow up. And that's why I think I got a good reputation, because I was just saying, sorry, it didn't happen. Thank you. And I hope we can find something new. That little thing was the service that I gave to candidates. And that is what gave me a lot of referral. That a lot of referrals for jobs came from actually candidates versus, you know, clients. So it tells you that you can, you know, you can do that in different ways. So Monique is asking that she's had 20 years track as a trainer in the luxury spa industry. Now I'm looking to transfer my skills to other industries. How can I present myself so that HR will see beyond my past career track? Monique, congratulations, because if you've done 20 years something, and you must do it very well, so congratulations. And I think anybody who can train somebody, if you can train, is a very important skills, because a lot of people are going to be changing career and changing. So training, as you know, you get into the psyche of people, and you know their resistance, and you know how to go around that. And the spa industry, and you have Nicolas here, who's been in the spa industry. You have Solange here, who's been in also the cosmetic industry. You are the closest you can be to a human being, because you get them, you know, usually naked on a massage table. So it doesn't get as more personal as that. So if you can really, you know, share that your experience is making people at ease, and how you can really, and I think you could be in the HR side, because training is also recruiting. So I would encourage you to look at, you know, recruitment and helping companies. A lot of companies are pivoting right now, and you can help train their current employees to do new tricks, or train their employees to be more on the clienteling, or whatever you were doing. So that's my quick advice.
If I might add,
Please
the spa
do.
industry is almost like New York. If you can make it in the spa industry, you can make it anywhere. And no, I mean, in all seriousness, I mean, these kind of skills can be transferred to a lot of industry, because, as Agathe said, it's an incredibly intimate industry with a lot of, you know, difficult employees, difficult client, difficult stakeholders. So 20 years in that, congratulations.
Is there anybody who wants to? So before I forget, and I would love if you unmic yourself or unmute yourself and share what I would like to do, and maybe tell me if it's a good or bad idea, or whatever. But maybe in the next Zoom, I will try to really keep the slides shorter, maybe, you know, 15, 20 minutes. But after, what I would like to offer is any of you who wants to actually share who you are and what you do, and in 2 minutes. And, you know, you can do an ask and a give, or you can just participate. But I think it would be interesting for a few of them, a few of you, or a few of us, to say, hey, this is me, this is what I'm doing. We did it at the beginning because there was 10, 15 people, but now we're 35. So I don't know if everybody has the time to share, and some of you know each other already. But if anybody wants to, say who they are, what they're looking for, and that's also why we created the collectives, is that to get that network solidified between you. On companies that are pivoting, as just you said. Juan, I don't have a resource for the LinkedIn or where companies are pivoting, but it depends on the industry you're looking for, because a lot of companies are pivoting. But if I do find, I'll definitely post it on LinkedIn and share it with you. And Christina, if you want to join the Career Pivot Collective, you can start anytime. The idea is that this is going to be an ongoing conversation. I think that what is interesting is we'll all be at different stages, and that is what is going to make the conversation rich. Because, some members will come, some members will go. What I want is that, ideally you commit to a month. I think it's a membership like the gym. If you, don't find it useful after a month, then please stop. But I do think it's going to be useful. Join whenever you can, and be ready to be part of a community. I think that's what I can add. And if anybody wants to share about what the group is, or Solange, if you want to share what your insights.
Oh, is Alix not here tonight?
I don't know where Alix is.
Okay.
I should start an attendance sheet.
Okay. Perhaps she's working on our preparation for tomorrow. Okay, so I'll introduce myself. I'm Solange Strom. I'm based in Toronto. I'm from France. I'm a former CEO of L'Occitane en Provence for Canada, and former CEO of Repeto for North America. And these days I'm working on creating a retail academy, because my little idealistic thing is to improve the lot of front store staff and retail managers, offer them better training, better education, and ideally better salaries. So that's a little bit my dada, if we want to say in French. And with Alix de Torca, I will be hosting the retail collective that starts tomorrow evening, 6 o'clock, I think, I guess. Mm-hmm. That's it. Yeah.
And they've already prepared a whole sheet with shared information, resources, and I think it's fantastic because there's really now a lot of noise out there. So there's going to be a lot of information, and sometimes it's good to, people will tell you this is the important information to look at, and this is what to look. And Sarah, I wanted to connect you eventually with Amber, who's also a designer. So I think, you'll enjoy meeting each other eventually. Is there any question, or is there anybody who wants to share what they're doing that I haven't spoken to?
I just want to share some good news for everybody. We were talking about that a few weeks ago.
Yeah.
So, as you were saying, Agathe, staff are picking up. I actually sent a resume back on the 5th of March to a large company. And yesterday they contacted me telling me, hey, you're not a fit, but we love your profile. We love what you've been doing. We will be actually opening some, and it was very personalized. I mean, that was like from the internal recruiter. And we would like to be in touch in the next month or so. Please let us know what you're up to and what you would like to do with our company. So, I mean, it's out there. There are things out there, things happening. May not go anywhere, but I thought it was very interesting because this is the first time I'm getting something that is so personalized, where they refer to actually job experiences that I've had. That was an internal referral, but still. So that's one good news. The other good news, I had a friend of mine calling me this weekend, and after 17 years for working for the same company, he actually started with another company this Monday. Totally crazy. That was the last trade show that he went to, met somebody, they ended up talking, and he's in sales. And after 17 years, got a job offer during the pandemic and started a new job.
Yeah.
So there are things out there, just so that everybody knows.
Thank you. Yes, there are plenty of things out there. And Sophie, thank you. And I think it shows that the network is active and people are going to want, even in what is happening in crisis and what happens with recruiters. I will tell you, just before the crisis, we had the tightest market ever, which was that it was very difficult to hire people. Nobody wanted to move. They were all happy. They were all well paid, etc. It was a very tight market. So my job as a recruiter was really what we call headhunting part, right? We had to go and actively look at people who were not interested to move and say, hey, do you want to join? So I was selling to candidates at some point. Now it's going to be the opposite. The market is flooded with individuals. And I think what is going to be interesting is companies are going to be able to pick and choose who they're hiring. And if you're ready, if you're prepared, you want to be on top of that, readiness, because they're going to be picky on who they can have, because they'll have access to a lot of talent. So it's important. And I forgot to mention, Sophie, but that's the very important thing, is there's a lot of company referral. So companies will pay employees to hire their friends and family, or not friends and family, but their acquaintances. So it's always great. And actually, if you're in HR or if you're recruiting or if you're hiring, it's a great way to hire the good people and say, we'll give you a bonus if you find us good candidates. And the same as I mentioned to you earlier, when a candidate refers me great talent, I will send them a little gift, because I want them to make sure that when they have a superstar again, they let me know, or that, I can count on them next time to have access to talent. So that's why the referral, the network, and is really important. So some people had to leave, but thank you very much. Let me know if there's any questions, and if anybody wants to stay, I'm here. If anybody needs to leave, you're free to go. Oh, Charlotte, we forgot the drinks. We said we were going to have drinks today. Nobody reminded me that.
Drinking the whole time.
I had it.
Really?
I don't have my drink.
Wait.
I had it.
Yeah, me too. I had it too.
Almost gone. Well, it's a bummer.
I don't have a drink. I have to go get one.
Okay, I found it here. It's so good, guys. This week is worth so long already. So I'm here, and if anybody wants to continue, I'm very happy to continue. If you have any question, or if you want to be sending me an email, you have my email most likely.
Well, if you're drinking, how can we leave?
I know the party just started. I'm going to put some music on some great playlist.
I just have
share
water.
that there's a Brooklyn group. They've been doing playlists for, I think, over 10 or 12 years, called Chances with Wolves, or Chance with Wolves.
Oh.
It's a Brooklyn-based, and they do playlists, and they've never used the same song in playlists, and they have 400 playlists.
Wow.
Oh,
yeah, that's that kind of level of music. Wow. And it's really cool. They have music from, I don't know, they make it super cool, like very Brooklyn hipster, that they Chance with Wolves.
Chance with
Wolves.
What does anyone think about doing the 2-minute introductions again? Just so we can kind of like have that at this moment in the conversation.
You can start. You want to do it?
Okay. I'm gonna start with something bold. I'm gonna tell you what I actually am, because there's a lot of things that I am, but I'll tell you what I actually am. So I'm actually a photographer, and I've got a work history of a lot of stuff, including doing projections for live performance, TV shows, cruise ships, doing design work like presentations, because I wanted to learn strategy. I thought at a certain point about going back and doing an MBA, but I thought, if I just become a PowerPoint designer, everyone hates it, everyone needs one. I can learn a lot really fast. So now I'm building websites and stuff. But I've realized something really like intense recently. All of this coronavirus stuff means that I get really sad in front of a computer. So now I know I need to go back somehow to looking at people and light. So I'm like, I think I have to shift. I really have to shift and shift fast to being a photographer. So, and I live in New York. So.
Nice. Well, do you want to put your Instagram? Can we follow you on Instagram?
Yeah, my Instagram's kind of weird, but yeah, it's Amber Anywhere. And then from that, you can see my website. Ever a work in progress, as most best things are. But you know, I'm going to break all the rules, Agatha.
Amber Anywhere.
In 6 months, I'll have completed them all. So in 6 months, it'll look good.
Fantastic. Work in progress works for me. It's how it works.
What type of photography do you do, Amber?
Me, I prefer shooting with natural light. I like things that capture my heart. People, sometimes objects, often there are metaphors. So I tend to prefer to work more slowly with a group of people. So for example, I'm happier to shoot with a bunch of models backstage than to be the like superstar with all the lighting and 3 technicians, because I prefer to have more intimate conversations with people and just get to know them a bit. And then I might see a moment and then we're all like happy and comfortable. So that's my preferred way to be. I have a background as well doing things like director treatments of commercials. So I'm often thinking about the story or the light or the other moments like the B-roll that might happen along the way. I have a sneaking suspicion that the way I shoot is more like a DP, but I'm not super comfortable holding a big camera. I tend to think more in moments. And I think that probably these sequential images work together as like a nice long GIF. Sometimes I play with lights, like I was discovered that one of my chairs ends up being like a really nice cove. And I was thinking all the photo studios are shut and we have to change the way we shoot. So I just got some nice mascara, and then like the light in my room was really nice. And I just like shot this mascara. There's light rays going in different directions, but it's all natural. And then I got a kind of pretty dangly object and put it in front of it. And then it's like rotating with like lots of up and down bits. So I haven't put that on Instagram yet because I kind of want to figure out, is it appropriate? What's the best way? Is it better to do it from like a company? Like I set up an LLC and then maybe my photography work should go on that. So I'm kind of figuring it out while wrapping up my other projects. And then I went around to my mate's house and he's like skateboarding. He's got a photo studio skateboard ramp and he's skating down one side and then up the other and then jumping onto a lyra and then swinging from that and then jumping onto a tire and then somebody throws some juggling clubs and like catches them. So I find people like that quite entertaining. Rock bands. Does that answer the question?
Your field is going to change a lot because I just saw that JQ did the front cover, and I think the whole article, I think on Robert Pattinson, who did he took selfies or with shooting himself. So if you can, and I would love that, if you can create a course on how to create cool photography, like how to share that light, how to share your tricks on lights and how to create, I think a lot of people are going to need that because we're going to be, I think also Marc Jacobs is shooting all their campaign on their own employees from their home so it's going to be very interesting where, you know, your skills are going to be in high demand.
And there's so many different voices in the market as well. Like, I just wonder if that will kind of happen, that you'll have like less centralized marketing, so it's more decentralized. So you've got user generated content, you've got employee generated content, you've got like people doing consultations when they're talking with clients, so they're building their networks. I think they have a friend that I should get along to this conversation because he was a store manager for a luxury brand and then he's like furloughed now. But I think this is like a perfect, what's the thing tomorrow that was like for retail?
It's the arts, culture and collective is the arts, culture and retail collective is at every Thursday at 6 p.m.
And actually, as a matter of fact,
for that we have Solange is heading that, and we are creating a private Slack group, and that's where the shared and the more private conversation, and the Zoom won't be recorded. And
oh yeah, this is recorded.
I just present the parts where I'm showing my slides, and then I cut those off.
To answer your comment, Amber, in the collective tomorrow, we'll be discussing one of Anna Angelic's articles about how brands are pivoting to the 4 C's, and exactly to your point about how content is being created, you know, in employees' houses and etc. And that'll be the day, one of the points of discussion tomorrow.
Yeah.
Amazing. What does anybody else do? Who are you wonderful people? I see your faces. You look great.
So I know most of the rest of the team here. I don't know Natasha, if you want to share a little bit of what you do. And I know Sabine, but I never know what, I don't have your background, I think, Sabine. So if you want to share a little bit more. But Natasha, you want to start?
Yeah, so I was a big firm management consultant turned independent person, and also I teach mindfulness and meditation. So my what I'm trying to get into is bring mindfulness into organizations in a sustainable way, a way that shifts the culture, makes the workplace more human, and is something that is like weaved into the fabric of an organization rather than as a tack on benefit, employee benefit.
Nice, great. Sabine, do you want to share a little bit about you?
Yes, I have mixed background. I mean, the longest in fashion, where I worked at different positions, from production to evening wear, couture, mostly all in New York, not in Europe. And then various designer, and I had my own small company of children wear a long time ago. And then I eased into styling, which was more freedom. And I've been doing it for a long time with up and down. I eased by circumstance and interest into the sustainable world. I worked a lot with a few green magazines. Mm-hmm. And the last one 2 years ago, which collapsed because it was not sustainable, as a fashion editor, and it was difficult to aspire to something which didn't sustain itself. And in the meantime, also develop a business in France to do of houses and renovation, and so that took a lot of time and attention from me. So my styling business here in the last few years was a little bit in shambles. in between dealing with friends and getting that business going, and the sustainable magazine that took a lot of energy from me and was great but didn't bring any money. So that's where I am. So I went back into doing regular job which were not sustainable related, but helped me pay the rent.
It's interesting because what I find that most people have in common that come on the Zoom is they've done a lot of different things, and they're often, capable of doing 2 or 3 jobs. Whether you've done fashion or editor of a magazine, or renovations or mindfulness and marketing. I mean, it's very interesting because I think your capacity to move from different project is going to be to success in the future.
I hope so. I mean, it's super familiar, and at the same time, it's interesting for me. It's true. I work for 10 years for regular businesses. Like 9 to 5 or 9 to midnight. It varies, especially in fashion. It's more like 9 to midnight, and it was great, but it gets boring. I mean, it's the same formula. So in fact, freelance and the styling was great because it's the same formula, but it's always different. The teams are slightly different, the project, the location. So that was the same, but more interesting.
Good, very nice. Anybody else wants to share? I think I know most of you. Monique, you want to share? So you were in the spa industry?
Yes, I am new to this group, and I've been looking forward to participating all week. So It's a pleasure to be here. As I said in my comment, my most recent position was that I was the National Director of Training for the massage department at a spa. They did file bankruptcy, so it's giving me the opportunity to kind of think about different things and what I would like to do next. And I do have a very wonderful, rich background in wellness. I do everything from teaching massage to I'm an Ayurvedic practitioner. What has been a lot of fun in this particular time is that there is one thing that I have been doing longer than massage that now everybody seems to be very interested in. So I've been doing a lot of classes on the tarot on Zoom.
Ah, nice.
Yes, so it's been very interesting. For me, what I would like to do as I'm, considering my next move is to really remain in the luxury category and to consider bringing wellness on a more holistic level to the luxury market, whether it's the spa industry or something else. I also have been just being very creative and enjoying that. So when I saw the collective and they had such a variety of places that all spoke to me, I was really excited to participate.
Fantastic.
So.
Thank you, Monique, for joining. And I think wellness is going to be the hot industry in the next couple of years because that crisis, and it's funny because it was coming already before. I remember somebody said, listening to a conference, and it was for the woman who started Blue Moon Juice, the kind of a juice, whatever. And she said it was a conversation about wellness and how the people in the fashion industry said, we know now how to look good, right? We have the right clothes, and now we want to feel good from the inside. And it was a big shift in the fashion industry of people saying, okay, we look good, we did all the outside, we have the right shoes, the right bag, whatever. And now we want to be taking care of looking as good from the inside. So I think the wellness is going to be the one thing people want to focus on.